Well, after one day of riding the Mickelson Trail, I wanted to give a little bit of a review of what I've seen so far, and maybe also answer some questions that you might have about the trail conditions, the kind of bike I'm riding, and camping along or other lodging along the trail. In terms of the trail conditions, it is crushed gravel. There are some sections where, at different times of year they'll have put fresh gravel down, so it can be a little bit deeper in some sections. I am camping, so I'm carrying a lot of gear on my bike. So I have a heavier bike, and there was one downhill section that I really did have to slow down on because I have so much weight on there. I can't maneuver as much, and I felt the depth of the gravel was maybe a little bit more than I wanted to do really fast. That being said, it was very well maintained, and I wouldn't say it's deep gravel per se. It was a little bit more loose and maybe fresher, and so that's why I just felt like I had to slow down a little bit there. But other than that, very well maintained. The services along the trail, which I had heard going in that there weren't many services, I would say yes and no. I mean, there were more trailheads than I had anticipated there being. So there were places to stop, get out of the sun. Much of the trail was open to the sun. So if you are doing this in the middle of summer, it will be very hot, be aware. I didn't find water at the trailheads that they said had water. There were pumps, there were wells that you had obviously places where you should be able to get water, but they were either dry or pinned closed. So I'm riding just before the end of May. I don't know if maybe they are put on in summer, or maybe this is just a lingering COVID thing where they're not opening water. But I did not find any water along the trail until I reached Hill City. So I would definitely recommend, if that's the case, to carry. I had 4 bottles, and I went through like 2.5. But I would definitely carry that and food. Internet service or cell service was no. So, which, you're in the middle of the forest, so you would kind of expect that. So the cities have, Deadwood and Hill City, and I'm sure Custer has internet, but when you're on the trail, don't expect to have that. So that was services. In terms of, there's lodging. So if you're planning to stay indoors, there are, as I mentioned, there were at the beginning hotels in Deadwood. There's also plenty of hotels in Hill City, as well as campgrounds, RV parks, and many and ranch stays and B&Bs, that kind of thing. And many of them are directly off the trail. So if you want to just do this as a in-to-in stay, you absolutely could do that. There is no one that shuttles luggage, but there are people that will shuttle you from one end to the other. So you would still be carrying your luggage, but you don't have to carry a tent and that kind of thing. If you're camping or intending to camp, as I am, then you are, for the most part, riding through, or for a good portion, you're riding through forest lands. So you can wild camp on forest lands. You just have to adhere, of course, to all of their regulations, and you have to be sure that you are on their lands. I was recently tipped off to a free app called Avenza, which I've been using, but if you can get a hold of mapping which will delineate the forest versus private boundaries, then you'll know whether you're on forest land or not. I'll link to the Avenza app in the description below, but basically this is a free app that you can just pull up scanned copies of like a myriad of technical maps on. So what I did was pull up the motor vehicle use maps for this ranger district. And again, I will link also which maps that apply to the trail here. So I was on the Black Hills National Forest Ranger District, or Mystic Ranger District map. And the wonderful thing about the Avenza and pulling it up through there is that it places you on that map, even if you're offline. So, pertinent to camping, you're able to see as you ride, or you're looking for a camp space, whether you're on public land or private land, or forest land or private land. And there are, plenty of private lands along this trail. I would say Hill City's about the middle. If you're planning to wild camp around Hill City, The the 5 miles in either direction, in and out of the city, is private. There's houses, there's campgrounds. You don't expect to find something like right there unless you're staying at a campground. Once you're outside that 5 to 10 mile zone, for the most part, it's forest, although there are, again, some ranches. So just be aware whether you're on public or private land. I showed you the Orville, and the Red Fern one is probably similar, where you could camp right along the trail. They have a little shelter kiosk thing that you could be at. But I had already previously looked up on the motor vehicle use map that this is Spring Creek Road, and the Forest Service have dispersed sites marked on this road. So if you're riding and you wanted to stay south of Hill City, you could come onto Spring Creek Road. You do have to leave the trail at one point and kind of like climb up a little hillside to get onto Spring Creek Road. But once you're on the road, you have to go in about a mile or a mile and a half to get past. There's a wildlife protected area that you cannot camp in, but then it's marked when the forest boundary starts, and that's where obviously you can. The nice thing about the dispersed sites is that they have them a little bit cleared out and they have them marked. There's no open fires are allowed here, but they're clearly allowing camping. So you can feel that little bit of ease about knowing that you're in a designated, camping area. So that is what I would recommend for looking at camping. Most of the trail, when I was riding along it in those national forest sections, there really wasn't anything that you would just get off the trail and go to, because on one side it's very steep, basically just up the mountain, and there's really nothing flat to stay on. And then on the other side, it's just the wetland and the creek. So you really wouldn't want to be down there. So the nice thing is that they have either some of these dispersed sites or those kiosk stations that are right on the trail, which do have a little bit of flat ground, right there that you could camp in. You may have questions about what kind of bike is appropriate for the trail. I saw a variety of types of bikes on the Mickelson while I was riding. Like most rail trails, I'm going to say that you should probably be on 28 millimeter or wider tires. You don't need to be on a mountain bike for this trail. Nothing I've seen yet says that you would need to be, and I can't imagine it changes that much. I am on a Kona Rove. It's a touring gravel bike. It has 40 millimeter wide tires with tread, and I found that to be fine. I'm very loaded, very heavy. I ideally probably would have gone with maybe a slightly wider tire just for comfort's sake, or maybe I could have lowered the air pressure a little bit for me, but it was very suitable to the trail. So what you're comfortable on is usually best. You probably could ride a road bike on here. I don't think it would be super comfortable to do it, but you probably could do it. You can ride a mountain bike on here or a fat bike on here, no problem. You don't have to do it, but if that's the bike that you're most comfortable on, you definitely could. I definitely felt like my gravel touring style bike, anything in the 40 range, was probably exactly what is appropriate for this trail. And I think that's all the points I wanted to get across. If you have any other questions, you can always leave them in the comments. I will do my best to answer those. And otherwise, I'm looking forward to showing you the rest of the trail.